Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Dr. Ray, and today I'm going to be entertaining a most asked question, and that is on Royal Canin breed-specific diets. So are they worth it? Is there any validity to them? Do I recommend them? And all those questions surrounding that. So basically, let's start at the beginning. My name is Dr. Ray. I'm a small animal general practitioner. I have this channel where I answer your questions. A lot of those questions do revolve around pet nutrition. It seems to be an area of interest. It seems to be an area where there is a lot of confusion. And I do have some thoughts as to why that is happening. I think a lot of it has to do with the emotionally charged marketing that we are seeing these days, and how that ties into some of our deep-seated love and the ways that we show love and affection to our pets. And so I know a lot of the marketing tends to skew that and use that sometimes against you and instill some confusing thought processes. And so on this channel, I try to remove that for you guys, and let's get back to the basics and just look at the basics of nutrition. Is a food at its basics nutritious? And then you can build from there. And so the reason why I'm bringing up marketing and things like that is we're going to be talking about Royal Canin diets and their kind of marketing thing, which is breed-specific diets today. We are going to be using in general, we tend to use a very methodical approach. It's called the pet food scoring system, where we assign points to key nutrients, and we assign points to important factors that ensure that a food is at its base nutritious. That process is outlined for you guys in a video titled PSS, or a methodical approach to pet food, and you can search that and watch the video. I also have the entire process, as well as my theories as to why people get confused and how to avoid those pitfalls, into two workbooks that I authored, one for dog, one for cat, and they're called The Reasons We Feed, and it helps you dive into some of the emotional reasons that we feed, and then what reasons we really should be paying attention to when you feed. So you can check those workbooks out on my website that I have for all my friends out there in the internet. My website is docray.com, and I'll flash that up here, and you guys can head over there. I have a lot of tools and resources. I have some free guides, free safety tips. I've got a free pet loss guide and a puppy starter guide, and all kinds of things that you can check out there, as well as a lot of the cheat sheets for all the reviews that I do that have all the numbers broken down for you for some of our more popular reviews. I do also have now on my website a way that you can request a pet food, because I get so many requests for reviews that I just cannot keep up with them, and some of the brands are very, very obscure, and I know that they don't resonate with a larger audience, and so some of those more specific questions I don't answer on this larger platform, but I do have an option on my website where you can request that, and I can go through this PSS system on the food of your choice, so you can certainly check that out as well. So we're going to be focusing on the Royal Canin breed-specific diets. And I mentioned marketing. And so how does that play in here? A lot of the marketing these days, I'm sure a lot of you have seen them, have to do with pulling at the emotions, pulling at the heartstrings, focusing on making you feel guilty and making you feel ashamed if you do not perform or you do not purchase in the direction that they want you to. So for example, if you are feeding your pet burnt balls, you're a bad guy, you don't love your pet, and so you're a bad person. Not true. If your pet does not jump for joy and gobble and doesn't devour their food in the first 2 seconds of offering it, then the food is horrible and you're a horrible pet parent. If you don't spend exorbitant amounts of money on your pet food, you're a bad pet parent. If you don't X, Y, Z, you're a bad pet parent. And I don't like that marketing tactic. I would prefer a company just say, listen, this is what we have to offer. We think it's the best because of this is our theory, this is our research, these are the reasons, and you guys decide if that's appropriate for you. That to me would be very helpful marketing, but that doesn't sell. And so a lot of companies don't do that. Royal Canin is doing a type of marketing with their breed-specific diets that I think is beneficial. but it is still marketing at its base. And so what do I mean? As you see when we go through their website, they have lots of breed specific dog foods and cat foods. And so there aren't any published paper or data that says specifically if you have a Jack Russell Terrier, you need a diet that has specifically this in it. And we have data and research to show that if you do this, you will extend the life or extend the quality of life, you know, this many more years. There aren't any to my knowledge. Now there are some studies, and a lot of the studies are done on beagles and things like that, and so we know kind of in general what a good base would be, and we use small animal clinical nutrition in this channel as optimized values that we shoot for. We know that certain breeds have certain health conditions that are entrenched in that breed, and so we know that they may require specific tweaks here and there. But there's no rule that you have to do that, or if you don't do that, your dog is gonna automatically do poorly, or your cat is gonna automatically do poorly. What Royal Canin has done is they have been working on, and you can peruse their website and kind of find this information out there. They've been working on kind of like mapping and genetically being able to identify different breeds from like a genetic level. And so they are taking that information and they can provide that information to you. If you know, a lot of us adopt our animals from the animal shelter, we don't know what they are. They are taking, you know, DNA, and then they can then identify how much of your dog is XYZ breed, and then you can then, you know, then tailor the diet supposedly to that. You know, to me, it's more of a fun thing than a scientific thing. I don't really use those genetic profiles for much. Sometimes they do have certain gene expressions that can raise a concern, but just because they carry the gene doesn't mean they're expressing the gene, and so even that is a little bit flawed and can get confusing to people. But with that aside, we are going to go through the diets, and I'm going to tell you what about the breed as a veterinarian I know from my training and my clinical experience, 15 years, what we know are some breed issues, and then we're going to see how Royal Canin has addressed them in the diet. There's 6 pages of these diets, so I probably won't go through the entire PSS system on all of them. But again, if you want to do that or you're interested in the food, I highly recommend you do that. Get the workbook, work through them, work through all of them, work through a couple of them, work through several of them, work through different formulations and preparations and all that. Have fun with it, because that's what I want you guys to do with these workbooks. And so, you know, I definitely encourage you to do that, and we're probably not, for time's sake, going to do that today. So we're going to start off. I have a screen capture going here, and you can definitely visit their website, royalcanin.com, and you can follow along, or we can just you know, you can just listen kind of as I go through each. The first one that I'm seeing here is the Rottweiler adult dry dog food. When I think of the Rottweiler, the main health things that I worry about with the Rottweiler, because they're a large breed dog, is going to be hips and joints is going to be a major thing. They do get eye problems, so we do see a lot of glaucoma and eye-related issues in the Rottweiler. Unfortunately, we do see a lot of cancers in the Rottweiler, so specifically the one that I worry about is osteosarcoma or cancers of the bone. Any large breed like that where we worry about joint issues, I also worry about weight, because as we increase weight, we increase the chances of joint disease. So those are the conditions that I am mostly concerned about with the Rottweiler. But let's see what Royal Canin has to say. They're saying that their Rottweiler diet is for the true working dog, the Rottweiler. They're watchful protectors. It's a giant breed, so you know that I agree with. And they need the right diet to keep their hearts healthy, maintain muscle mass, and support joints and bones. So we're kind of on the same page there with the joint and bone concerns. When you click on benefits, that's where they're going to have exactly what they have done, what they have changed in this diet to make it more ideal specifically for the Rottweiler. And so they're saying that they have a special kibble for the molluscoid jaw. The Rottweiler has a strong, broad upper jaw, and with strong teeth meeting in a scissor bite. So they've changed the kibble shape, size, and texture to Limit food intake rate by encouraging chewing. So that's going to help slow them down, let them get fuller faster. And high energy content covers requirements of the Rottweiler without overloading the stomach. So they're bringing up another point. Some of these large breed, large chested dogs, I would not consider the Rottweiler a GDB risk, but they're kind of alluding to that there. And I believe they do have a picture of the kibble. So there is, you know, the kibble there. It's kind of an interesting shape that they have devised. Again, based on what research, I don't know. You know, if they had a reference here, I would look at it, but you know, they're not listing references for that. Again, they've got that bone and joint health, and so they are adding enriched with EPA and DHA. Those are your omegas, and they are saying that they are helping maintain a healthy weight for that. And they're mentioning cardiac function. All dogs, I think, have cardiac you know, susceptibility. I wouldn't necessarily think the Rottweiler is at the top of the list. That would be more of a Doberman for me. But they are saying that cardiac function, so they, again, the EPAs and DHAs, those are your omegas, and then they have taurine in there. Dogs do not require additional taurine. They synthesize the taurine they need from other amino acids. So again, you know, is that a marketing thing? Is that really necessary? And then they say that they are having a tailored level of protein at 24% minimum for this specific breed needs. We've talked on this channel before about the specifics of large breed adult. Do you need to have a large breed adult? No, you don't. The requirements of protein across the board for all the adult dogs, to my knowledge, does not change. So somebody asked me that the other day about pit bulls. They heard on a bully website that pit bulls need more protein. There is no studies to support that that I'm aware of. If you've seen one, shoot it my way. I'd be happy to look at it. But I stay pretty up to date with those things, and I read the Journal of American Veterinary Medical Association monthly, and I cannot think of the past 15 years ever reading an article that said that any specific breed required more protein. So again, creative license on that. Let's go ahead and just peruse really quick the nutritional information and just see if there's anything there that is jumping out at us. So the crude protein at 24% is in the range that we want, as well as the fat, as well as the fiber. They did add those EPA and DHA omegas. It's hard here with the percentage for me to know if that is an appropriate amount or not, because I'm used to it being in like milligrams, and so I can't speak to that. We'd have to do some math to figure it out. Again, the taurine, not essential. That's why it's got the star there. The carnitine, not essential. That's why it has the star there. Glucosamine, also not essential, giving us a minimum at 891. Doesn't say if it's glucosamine, sulfate, or hydrochloride. So I would like for that to say hydrochloride, because the sulfate's not going to be absorbed. So again, that's another you know, wishy-washy thing, and they're not listing our minerals. It is for adult maintenance, so that is good. All right, so that is the Rottweiler. Is it a bad option for a Rottweiler? I would like to see those calcium and phosphorus levels to be able to tell for sure. But you know, and the information that they gave us with the protein, the fat, and the fiber, you know, I'm happy with those numbers. So we'd have to call the company and get that additional information there to be sure that it is on point. Although the AFCO statement says it's for adults, so I have some confidence that it would be. So that was the Rottweiler. Next one we have is the French Bulldog. I myself have a French Bulldog. I see a lot of French Bulldogs. I think it has finally surpassed, I think they said it surpassed the Labrador Retriever last year or the year before for the most popular dog. So it's only fitting that they make a French Bulldog diet. Now, French Bulldogs have a lot of medical concerns to the veterinarian, I'm sure a lot of you know. We worry about the delayed gastric emptying and the choking and the brachiocephalic airway syndrome on them. They have very slow GI tract, and they tend to regurgitate or have issues with their motility, aboral motility of their food. I went to a conference not too long ago, and I saw a very, 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 which I knew it was going to look like this, but impressive fluoroscopy of the brachiocephalic Frenchies swallowing food, and how the food essentially, like, they would swallow it and it would like retroflex back up past the soft palate and then go back down again. And so that's a major thing. A lot of Frenchies do have skin issues, so we see that with them. They have very small teeth, so yes, chewing can be an issue with that. And those are kind of like the big things. I think the Frenchie is now on par with the Dachshund for intervertebral disc disease, so we want to make sure that they're not obese, and that they have enough like glucosamines and things in their diet for chondroprotectant. So that's what I would be looking at for a Frenchie. They are saying, Royal Canin is saying that they are taking note of the brachiocephalic jaw and the issues there. And again, they have designed a kibble that they think is going to be beneficial for that. And we'll look at the kibble here in a minute. And they have powerful muscles. They are bulldogs, so yes, they are a heavily muscled animal. So they feel, again, 24%. So you can see the Rottweiler was 24% optimal protein, and they say that's also the case for the Frenchie. We'll see. It may not be very different at all from the Rottweiler diet, so we're going to find that out. The skin, so they mentioned that. And so they have something they've added in there. I guess they're omegas that are there for skin support. Nothing wrong with that. That's always a healthy thing to be in there. But again, that was also in the Rottweiler diet. And then they have odor reduction. And so that again goes back to the issues with the GI motility and the fermentation. And so they say that they have highly digestible proteins in there and an appropriate fiber content, and that's supposed to help with digestibility. So let's see, let's look at the kibble first and see if it looks very much different than maybe a little bit different. It's got a little bit more of a concave appearance to it than the one they had from the Rottweiler. Let's see, the guaranteed analysis, a little bit lower fat than the Rottweiler, fiber a little bit lower, but the protein is the same. Again, they're not giving us the calcium and phosphorus, but they do have the omegas, the glucosamine and chondroitin in there, and the L-carnitine. So very similar, very, 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 very similar to the Rottweiler. Let's see, next one is the King Charles Cavalier. King Charles Cavaliers are known for their cardiac disease. That's a big thing with them. They have very floppy ears, so I often worry about ear infections with them. And they have very kind of bulgy, beautiful puppy dog eyes. And I worry a lot about their eyes with them. So those are going to be the three things that I worry about in the King Charles Cavalier. When I was in school, our cardiology courses said that the King Charles Cavalier is the poster child for mitral valve dysfunction. And so that's the big thing that I always think about with them is heart disease. So I want to make sure that we are absolutely always feeding, in my opinion, a Cavalier a grain inclusive diet, because we do not want to mess around with that with them at all. Again, they have designed a kibble specifically for the King Charles Cavalier for their slightly tapered muzzle and also their scissor bite. Cardiac health is the number 2, and so absolutely they are doing some of the exact same things that they've done for the others. Overweight, I think that's like across the board for all breeds. We have to be really careful about being obese. The only breed that I think I've never seen an obese specimen is probably the Greyhound, honestly, and like the standard Greyhound, not the minis, because the Whippets and things like that, I've definitely seen obese ones. But coat health, so that would go along like what I said, the ear infections and things like that. So same stuff, just omegas to help support the skin and coat. Let's look at the kibble, special kibble. All right, this is a little bit different. Go more your standard kind of like square kibble for them, nothing special on that. It is for maintenance. Protein at 25% versus 24% here, but you can see it's just a minor difference. It's still well within the range. Fat is even lower, so I suppose that they think that even more prone to obesity, so they've got that down to 12, which is at the lower end of the range, and fiber at 4.5%. And then all the other stuff is exactly the same. They've just messed a little bit with the guaranteed analysis. Main factors there. And so this diet, even though it's King Charles Cavalier diet without low fat, if you have a dog, let's say that maybe has an issue with pancreatitis or has pancreatitis, you may not have a King Charles Cavalier, you may have a mutt, or you may have, you know, I don't know, a Jack Russell Terrier. But this diet may be perfectly fine. You don't have to feed this to a King Charles Cavalier. You could say, look, that 12% fat is really what I'm looking for. It's not going to hurt your dog just because they're not a King Charles Cavalier. And so that might be somewhere where Royal Canin maybe has messed up a little bit, because you know, hopefully they're not alienating people that you know, just by putting that breed on there. Next one we're gonna do the Yorkie. So we're getting into some of the tiny breeds here. Things that I think about with the Yorkie 100% is gonna be the teeth. Bad teeth in the Yorkie. I don't know why that is. I have some theories as to why I think these smaller breed dogs have bad teeth, and those two reasons are, one, very small bone density in their jaw. And if you've watched any of my videos about dental disease in our canine and feline patients is not about the enamel most of the time. Like 99.9% of the time, dental disease is not the enamel, it is the bone. The bone becomes diseased and then the teeth fall out because the bone shrinks away. And so I think that Yorkies and the small breed dogs already have very thin bone density, so it doesn't take long for that to happen. The other reason is just they're really hard to brush their teeth or anything. They're really small and people have a really hard time brushing their teeth and doing the necessity preventive maintenance because it will land sharks. And so with the Yorkie, that would be it. And then the other thing that I see a lot in Yorkies is going to be luxating patellas. So those are the two things. And then of course obesity across the board. Obesity, obesity, obesity. I'm going to pretty much say that in every single one. So let's see benefits, what they've done for your Yorkie. Again, they have a kibble design. We're going to look at that. Coat health. The Yorkie's hair coat is known for its continuous growth. Yes, that's true. There's two type of dogs. Basically, it has to do with like the hair growth cycle. And so short-haired dogs, the hair grows to a short length and then falls out. That's the natural cycle. So short, falls out. You never have to cut it because it never gets bigger. Yorkie and those dogs that need to be groomed, their hair has a much longer cycle. So it will eventually fall out, but it gets really long before that happens. And so, you know, they're putting in some extra omegas or their own adapted content of omegas to help maintain the softness and things like that. There is a dose for omegas that is important for skin and coat. It's lower than the joint health dose. And so they don't say what dose they're doing. Again, it's listed at a percentage, so I can't calculate that for you, but kind of seems like it's the same thing. They're just kind of adjusting the kibble shape and then, you know, a little bit of the guaranteed analysis, but they're putting in all of them, or they're relying on all of them for like omegas and glucosamine and chondroitin. Satisfies a fussy appetite. You guys know my feelings on that. If you don't, you can watch my picky eater video and you can read about it in the workbook. Fussy eater is something that we are projecting on them. Yorkie stomachs are like that big, like tiny, really, really tiny. They do not have to eat very much to actually be full and meet their nutritional requirements. I would say, you know, average Yorkie, depending, some of them are like really tiny, like 10-pound Yorkie, I would say is probably about average. You probably only need 200 calories a day. That's like tiny, that's a cat amount. And a normal cat, not like the just continuous bowl-fed cat. Like 200 calories a day is a really small amount. So I think a lot of people think that their Yorkie is fussy because they don't eat a whole lot, but they don't need to eat a whole lot. So I don't agree with them on that one. Early aging support. Yorkie is known to have a long life expectancy. Yes, the smaller the breed dogs, the longer the life expectancy tends to be. So they are targeting nutrients like vitamin C. So that's interesting. Let's put some vitamin C in there for, I guess, free radical scavenging. So let's see what the kibble looks like on this one. Doesn't have like oh yeah, is that a centimeter? 1 centimeter? Is that what that's supposed to say on the bottom? So it's kind of the same, like kind of square. I can't tell if that is smaller or larger than the King Charles Cavalier version. It would make sense to me that it should probably be smaller for a Yorkie, but not sure on that. And then again, it's for maintenance. I do like that they are all for maintenance, but you can see right here we'll load up for you the word formulated. So these diets are all formulated. They're not feeding trials. They're not feeding this to Yorkies to see do they actually do better, extend their life. It's just a formulation. All right, moving right along. What's next? Oh, we've got the Bichon. The Bichon Frise. Bichons. Big thing with the Bichons. I would say GI. I would say skin. And I would say the tear staining. People don't like the tear staining in the Bichons. And so let's see what they're doing to help us out here. Digestive health. Nothing specific, just saying help support digestive health. Healthy skin and coat. They've got an exclusive complex of B vitamins and amino acids to help maintain skin. Again, I'm not sure of any research that suggests that they need that. Maintaining ideal weight, important across the board for breeds. And it says that the Bichon has a strong lower jaw and its teeth meet in a scissor bite. You can see the consistencies here, all the ones that we've seen. So they've got a special texture and shape for them, and it looks maybe slightly bigger than the Yorkie one, but very similar. All right. We got the Shih Tzu. Shih Tzus, 100% hands down, issues with the Shih Tzu as the eyes. The Shih Tzu walks into the veterinary clinic and I don't get to know any information, and you're telling me, you know, Dr. A, what do you think the appointment's for? I'm going to tell you it's for dry eye in the Shih Tzu. Other than that, they get matted, they need grooming. That's my big thing with them. So again, they have, they're considering them a brachycephalic jaw. I've never considered a Shih Tzu. Yeah, I guess it is a brachycephalic. It's got a short snout. I don't see very many issues with the Shih Tzu though with brachycephalic airway syndrome. They're going to cater to that brachycephalic situation again with a special kibble for them. Healthy skin. They do tend to have bad skin. I don't think I mentioned that, but yeah, they do tend to have some issues with like crusty skin and stuff like that. So I agree with that, but same thing. They're just adding the EPA DHAs, and they're also adding vitamin A, which is a retinoid in there. Vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin. I don't know what dose of vitamin A, I'd have to look it up, is actually necessary to give like that retinol effect. We'll look in the guaranteed analysis. They probably don't tell us exactly what's in there. So it's not, it's important that it's in there, but it's also important that it's in there in the correct quantity. So if it's not in there in the correct quantity, simply putting it in there as a token isn't going to do you guys any good. Coat health, they've got the omegas just like everything else, and they have a stool and odor reduction. Stool and odor reduction. It's helping reduce fecal smell and volume, and that makes sense because a lot of these guys go on potty pads, are apartment critters, and so you don't want a lot of stinky and large voluminous stools that you have to pick up. So that makes sense to me on that one. Let's look at the kibble. That's definitely a different. I would be very interested to know or see the research on how they came up with these kibble designs, or did they just like make it up? I don't know. Okay, let's go on to the next one. That was the Shih Tzu. We've got the pug. So that's definitely a brachycephalic. Pugs, what do we say about pugs? Pugs hate their nails trimmed. They are very aggravating to the veterinary staff when we have to cut their nails because they scream like bloody murder. And they're very difficult to do because they are brachycephalic. So they will turn blue and have a lot of problems, self-inflicted, just for nail trim. So brachycephalic syndrome, eye issues for sure, 100%. Obesity, I think I have seen like 3 in my entire 15 years pugs that are not obese, which is sad. And skin, so skin, eyes, brachycephalic, GI, so like anal gland issues, a lot of issues with the pug breed. I think that maybe we have made their features, gone a little bit too far with that for the breed. A lot of issues. Everybody wants to say, oh, the Frenchie is horrible. People should stop breeding Frenchies. I feel like the pugs are honestly, I'm not saying anybody should stop breeding anything. That's your business, but I'm just saying as far as like the health issues, I feel like the pug far cases to Frenchie on health issues. And so what they've done, again, special kibble for the brachycephalic. They have mentioned the skin as well as, you know, my concerns. Ideal weight, one of my major concerns. They've not mentioned anything about the eyes. So I'm not sure what could be done for that, if anything can be done in the diet for eyes. And there are some eye supplements that I do recommend in my clinic, mostly for cataracts and aging. So I don't know that they would be something you could add to the diet, because it's, you know, we're talking more about KCS in the pug, corneal ulcers from hitting things, than those aging things that I am aware of supplements and use supplements for. And then they're saying that they need to help maintain the pug's muscle tone. I can never say that I've ever saw a pug and said wow, that is one muscular pug. So I'm not sure about that, but they said they put an appropriate amount of protein for them. So let's just see what that looks like. Oh, did I do that? I think I missed that on the Shih Tzu. We'll go back to that in a minute. So protein, 23%, so they're hanging out right there. Fat, the lower end, I agree with that for a pug, 14%, fiber 3.5. We do need to go back. Let's look at the kibble really quick, and then I think I forgot to do. That's another interesting size, or, you know, a little bit bigger. I think that's 1 centimeter, so a little bit bigger than a centimeter, but it's kind of a weird, clover shape. I don't think I looked at the Shih Tzu guaranteed analysis. Let's do that really quick. 22%, so even lower on the protein for the Shih Tzu. 18% fat, a little higher in fat, and the fiber is still okay. I would have been interested to see if they put higher fiber in the pug, did they? Because I feel like pugs personally need more fiber. 3.4%, not really. Not really, they could have really upped that closer to 5 if they wanted to. The Yorkie, did we look at the guaranteed on the Yorkie? 25% on the Yorkie, so even higher. So yeah, I'm interested in why they did all of the weird protein levels, because the Yorkie, I would say, because they do live longer, they need lower protein because they're gonna live longer, and we know that kidney disease is an age-related condition. So, you know, as they get older, they're gonna at some point have some kidney disease. That's just expected. You would think they would have done a lower protein. Okay. What are we gonna do next? The Maltese. GI, I would say, on the Maltese. Stones, urinary stones in the Maltese. Dental disease in the Maltese. Those are my big ones. So dental health, they agree with me. Skin and coat, because they got that long hair, so same old with that. They're going to add that stuff. Stool and odor reduction, again, these are a lot of times house pets, pee-pee pad pets, so that makes sense. Fussy appetite, we already talked about that. I don't think it's fussy. I think they just eat a smaller volume because they only need a smaller volume, and in our heads, we think they need to eat more just because, you know, we just think we just need to. You know, they're our babies, you know, they can't only eat this much food, but really that's all they need to eat. They got another different interesting kibble size. Nutritional information, we got the lower protein, kind of a moderate fat, moderate fiber, nothing special there. I would have thought maybe they would have focused on these white reeds, putting something in there for the whiteness of the coat. That would have made sense to me. Poodle diet. Poodles come in all different sizes, right? You got your standard, you got your mini. Issues with the poodle: ears, GI. Those are the big ones for me. Obesity. We got a special kibble for them. We'll look at that. Their coat, they do have that woolly, curly coat. I don't know that they need anything specific for that, but they are saying that they've added those omegas again for their coat. You can see it's important, obviously, that they all have that added in there because every single one has had that. Aging support. Poodle is known for the long lifespan. I think that they mean the mini poodle. The standard poodles aren't going to live as long as a mini. Minis, I think I see, you know, into the late teens, even 20s, where the standards, you know, early teens maybe. And they're trying to maintain muscle mass. So let's see what they've done with the guaranteed analysis. A little bit higher protein there, 28. I think that's the highest that we have seen, but still in range we went at around 30, 17, so like a moderately to high fat. And poodles can be sporting breeds. You know, a lot of people hunt with poodles, and so that would make sense to have a little bit of higher fat and maybe more protein for a sporting breed. But for your couch potato mini poodle, I'm not sure, and you know where that data is coming from. There are 6 pages of this. I do not know that we are going to be able to go through 6 pages, but it looks like we have some that are repeats. So let's see if there are any more. I'm looking for the, people ask me all the time about the Schnauzer. Do we have a Schnauzer diet somewhere? We've got the West Highland Terrier skin on the Westie. And then maybe Addison's. Got their kibble, they got their coat, they're talking about skin. So they agree with me on that. Their kibble, you know, the kibble thing I think is just silly, but some of the breeds I think maybe, but in general I think having a different kibble for every single breed has to be marketing, unless there is some sort of a paper out there, but I haven't seen it, or if there is some sort of research, I guess it wasn't important enough to get published. I don't know. Guaranteed analysis, got a below what I would normally, although that's a minimum protein, 19%, pretty low. You'd have to do a dry matter conversion. So all these, if you are going to find one, you're like, oh yeah, I think I will do that, you do need to do dry matter basis conversion. So again, educate yourself on that and how to do that. And you will be able to do those calculations on your own. I do have a video on that as well, and there's a lot of calculators out there. But we got a lower protein on this one with a moderate fat. Let's look at the special kibble. Yeah, not so special. West Highland. All right, we got the Bulldog. We got another brachycephalic, the English Bulldog. If you have an English Bulldog, you need to get pet insurance. I'm just gonna say that. Just gonna say that. They are always obese. I don't even know if I've ever seen one that wasn't obese. So obesity is a major issue. They have issues with their eyes, they have issues with their ears, they have issues with their skin, they have issues with their joints, they have issues with their tails because they've got the corkscrew tail. And so the list goes on and on, honestly, for the English Bulldog. They've got that kibble for that brachycephalic syndrome that they have, I'm sure. So yeah, they're talking about that. Odor reduction. Oh yeah, I forgot about the GI stuff. English Bulldogs have GI problems, skin problems, joint problems. So yeah, they are listing everything. But you know, they're not doing anything necessarily different with them as far as that. You know, it's the same thing. They're adding omegas, the same story. Guaranteed analysis, lower on protein and fat, which makes sense, and higher on fiber. So, you know, maybe that makes sense. But, you know, if you can see these like EPAs and DHAs, they're all about the same, 0.17%, 0.07%, and glucosamine around 800. They're all about the same for that, to be quite honest. Beagles. Now that one's something they maybe have a lot of data on. Beagle's a good hearted dog. I really can't think of a single condition where I'm like, oh, it's a Beagle, it's probably XYZ. Ears, maybe ears and skin would be the only thing that I would think of for a Beagle. They're pretty good hardy breed, honestly. They got their kibble because they, oh yeah, to encourage them to eat slowly. They are fast eaters. I think I had a Beagle once that got a foreign body and like it wanted to eat like immediately after surgery, which is crazy. So yeah, I would say yes, overeating and obesity in Beagles. Beagles are athletes. Yep, a lot of people hunt with Beagles, so they're doing some extra joint support there. Food intake control. Yeah, I would say that, an ideal weight. So yeah, that's pretty spot on for the concerns for the Beagle. Oh, and they got a really interesting, looks like one of those cat treats, cat kibbles, kitten caboodle starfish type shape there. Nutritional stuff, pretty typical. I mean, there's really nothing. Each one, no, this one does have a little bit of different EFA, EPA, DHA type thing there. It's a little bit different. I would love to have them to have referenced like where they got this information on like these numbers on what each specific breed is optimized to. Boxers, love them, but gosh, they get cancer a lot. They get cancer a lot. They get mast cells all the time. They get cancers all the time. They get boxer cardiomyopathy, which is a heart condition, so I would worried about that with a boxer. Yeah, cancers and cardiomyopathy in the boxer are big for me. Yep, they have powerful muscles, so they want to cater to that. So they got the 24%, as what they're saying, is optimized healthy cardiac function. So they agree that is an issue. And then they've got the antioxidants. They're not saying cancer, but I'm assuming that's what they're saying, but not saying because they don't want to scare people. And then they've got them a brachycephalic kibble. I wouldn't, again, I guess they are brachycephalic, but I don't see in the boxer a lot of the issues with the brachycephalics, airway syndrome and stuff like that that I see on some of the other breeds that I would consider. Like I guess a boxer is a brachycephalic, but I don't see a whole lot of issues with them. They tend to deal with it a lot better. As for maintenance for adults, like we want, and then like they said, they've got the protein at the 24% minimum. You'd have to, again, it's minimum, you'd call them, get the exact information. Everything else, same stuff. They're adding taurine, they're adding carnitine, they're adding EPAs, DHAs, glucosamines. It's like almost cookie cutter for all of them. Still looking for the schnauzer though. We haven't found the schnauzer yet. We're gonna find it though. Medium adult, large dental care, medium dental care. Where's the schnauzer diet? We went through all of them and we did not find the schnauzer diet. Got the lab diet. Yeah, okay. We're gonna have to just look here because Chihuahua diet. We missed a lot of them. The Chihuahua, the Dachshund, the German Shepherd, the Golden Retriever. Oh my gosh, the Pomeranian. All the ones that we missed. The Great Dane. The Jack Russell we missed. Where is the Schnauzer? There it is. We got our Schnauzer. Is that all of them? Others. I don't know what others means. We'll click it. Alright, the lab. One of America's favorites. Hip disease, obesity, 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 obesity. Yeah, those are the main ones for the lab. Keep them thin, minimize the obesity, keep their joints healthy if you do that. They've got their own kibble. They want to, everything we talked about, ideal weight and bone and joint health and coat health. That's been in all of them, every single one. They've mentioned coat health. That's an interesting kibble. A little bit different. Slow them down. They do tend to gobble. Slow them down a little bit. That's interesting. Higher protein, is a bigger dog, but a lower fat. I think that goes good with the weight loss. We've got a little bit higher fiber, actually above the reference optimized range, a little bit higher fiber on this breed. I wonder why, I guess just to help with the obesity. They're putting high fiber, kind of make them feel fuller. Maybe be able to have a little bit more kibble. Yeah, lower calorie food, so 275 kilocalories per cup. So it's like a lower calorie per cup food, so they can get more food and not beg you guys and make you feel like you're starving them to death. So catering a little bit to our human emotions there to want to feed more, but still getting the calories down. Golden Retriever, my sister has one. I would say skin, ears, cancer, big ones, probably angiosarcoma of the spleen in the Golden Retriever. We'll look at their special kibble, and they said the skin and coat, they're saying cardiac function. I should have listed that one because my sister's Golden Retriever has bad skin, a splenic tumor, and a heart murmur. So they are probably adding the taurine to their diet to try to counteract that, even though, like we talked about, not necessary because it is synthesized. Nutritionally very similar to all the other ones that we have seen. Not much to report there. Dachshund, they do have a specific set of some interesting issues with that really long back. So their main thing is that intervertebral disc disease. So yeah, muscle tone and the joint health are their big things. You can see it's just resounding. Keep your pet with a good muscle tone, a good weight, you know, and maintain their skin and coat by feeding a balanced diet with the appropriate EPAs and DHAs, and keep them on, in my opinion, flea control, because that's the #1 cause of bacterial infections and itching and discomfort. I think you guys have a good base. Kibble design just looks like that typical square, nothing super special there. And guaranteed analysis, nothing special there, although interestingly enough in this one they did give us the calcium and phosphorus, which is very low, 0.6 minimum and 0.4, even with a 10% max moisture when you do the dry matter basis conversion, that's going to be really low. So again, we talked about it. If you have a dog with kidney disease, and you're looking, or a senior dog, and you're looking for the ever illustrious unicorn, because there's not very many options out there, you're looking for that unicorn diet. This doesn't say senior anywhere on it, but this here with the lower protein, not super low, it could be even lower, but if you're really trying to focus on those minerals, the calcium and phosphorus on this are really low. So that's, I'm glad we came and look at that. Yeah, they didn't even mention that. It says that they have an appropriate calcium and phosphorus content, but they're quite low on that. Interesting. I would say that's a good renal type level for that. Protein's a little high for renal, but good. All right, that one seems like a winner. Jack Russell. Can't really think of any. They're a pretty hardy dog. I can't really think of anything. Obesity would be really the only thing that I'm thinking of on that one. They got their muscle and vitality because they're super active, skin and coat, dental health. Yeah, I'd say that the Jack Russells do tend to have that small dog dental issue. Got that similar kibble shape to what was it, the Beagle. Guaranteed analysis, higher on protein, higher on fat. They're pretty active, so maybe that's why they're doing that. Otherwise, looks very similar. German Shepherd, hips, degenerative myelopathies, skin, ears. That's a major thing with the cancers, osteosarcomas, splenic tumors, GDV, so gastric dilatation, bloat. So they're focusing, yes, on what I would say to focus on, which is the digestive, the skin and coat, and the bone health. So they are definitely hitting the veterinary concerns, breed-specific veterinary concerns. They've also got kind of that kibble to slow them down, probably to help prevent the gastric issues. We got a low protein, high fat, higher fat, interesting. High fiber, I guess, to combat the obesity. Okay. Great Dane. Now we got a giant. We got to do a giant one here. Great Danes tend to have issues again with the joints, cancers, things like that. They're a large breed dog. Giant breed dogs are life. They age a lot faster, so they need like a senior and all those antioxidant stuff earlier in life than the smaller breeds. They're saying that this is for 24 months and older, so it's interesting. They do have that distinction there, 2 years old and older for this particular breed. Let's look at the kibble while we're here. It's special. I would have thought GDV would be a big thing with them, and they would have had the special kibble to help prevent bloating, but they don't. They just kind of have an oblong one. Concentrated energy with 80% muscle mass. The energy needs of Great Danes are 50% higher than those of other dogs of the same size. I wish they had where those numbers were coming. I wish they had a reference for this. Meanwhile, the short coat provides little insulation against cold. So it's a high energy formula, is tailored to meet their unique nutritional needs. Interesting, because I don't consider Great Danes high energy. I wouldn't consider them high energy. People don't usually hunt with them, sport with them, anything like that. So that's kind of an interesting statement. Digestive performance, a longer colonic transit time, as well as a higher caloric permeability in Great Danes. This is all very interesting. I wonder where they're getting this information from. So it seems like they are doing a little bit, you know, stating a little bit more about some breed specific things. It looks like maybe they have some data research there, although there's no asterisk or reference for that. But they're doing the same thing. So they're using the same highly digestible LIP proteins. They've like every single one of them, diets has said that, bone and joint health. So interesting one on the Great Dane. I wish I had some papers or something to back up what they're saying. The Chihuahua is going to be typical for all the small ones. So the teeth is the big thing of the Chihuahua. the teeth, and the obesity. So let's see what they've done. They got a small sized kibble. Perfect. I think that's good. Chihuahuas are known for their fussy appetite. I don't see how that's true because every Chihuahua I see is so obese. So they're clearly eating something. So I don't believe that. Stool and odor in their coat. They don't mention the teeth, which would be one of my major concerns with the Chihuahua. But they do have like a little small kibble they're saying for them. 26 protein, 14 fat, 3.6 fiber. So pretty typical, nothing major there. And kind of a high calorie, so 323 kcals per cup. And you know, a Chihuahua probably only needs like 200 or less calories. 200 or less calories per day. So, you know, they're barely getting a cup of that food. If their little tummies can even hold that, you're gonna have to probably spread that out throughout the day. What happened to our Schnauzer? We're still on the hunt for the Schnauzer. Didn't see like a Doberman one. I'm gonna skip the Pomeranian. I know, I'm not showing love to the Pomeranian, but this is getting long, so I just kind of wanna, I don't even know I'm gonna be able to timestamp all this. I just wanna get to the Schnauzer. All right, finally we found it. The Schnauzer skin. The Schnauzer skin. The Schnauzer is pancreatitis. Those are the two big ones on the Schnauzer. So we know we want something that's lower in fat for the Schnauzer. They have familial issues with hyperlipidemia. So we know we want lower fat on the Schnauzer, and we need something, ideally maybe some vitamin A. They did that on one of the other diets, you know, so maybe some retinols in there for the skin and the keratin issues they have, keratin deposition issues. And so they are mentioning the healthy skin, and they are putting that vitamin A in there, yay! And then intense coat color. So they have some amino acids supposed to help with the coat, and then they have ideal weight. They aren't specifically mentioning pancreatitis. We'll see what it looks like. The kibble is nothing special. Let's go and see. Yeah, they kept that fat at 10%. So they know where it's at. They know where it's at for the Schnauzer, keeping that fat low. So if you have a Schnauzer and your vet has told you you need a low-fat diet, this may be a very good option for you. They've got that vitamin A there, the 18,900 international units. I would have to do the math there to see if that is the correct amount to help with like the keratin disorder that a lot of Schnauzers get, the Schnauzer bumps. So I would have to look that up, but you know, if I was your veterinarian, I would be happy to do that for you. So maybe you guys can take this information to your vet and see what they think, and they can do the math for you for your specific case. So let's just do a few cat ones. They got the Maine Coon, the Persian, the short hair, the Bengal, the Ragdoll, the Siamese. The ones that I think have specific things that you need to pay attention to are going to be your smooshy face cats. So they're going to have specific health issues. People with Bengals feel like Bengals have specific health issues. I don't know that I see enough Bengals to be able to comment on that, but we're going to see what Royal Canin has to say about the Bengal. They feel like they have a special necessity for their jaw. Never really noticed anything special about the Bengal jaw, but apparently there is. They're athletic, and they need some digestive health, healthy coat, and yeah, so nothing nothing really there, and I would have never said that their jaw was anything different, but I wasn't anticipating much on the Bengal. Persians, I do think, have a lot, and they do get familial kidney disease, they get familial heart disease, they of course get hairballs, they're also brachycephalic, and so they have a lot of issues. So I'm interested to see what they're gonna do for our Bengal friends. Special kibble for the brachycephalic jaw. They are adjusting for the hairball and the long hair. Not saying anything about the cardiac issues or the kidney issues, but let's see on the nutrient analysis what they have. Not listing our what we like, you know, we like to see that calcium and phosphorus. They're not doing it. Not even mentioning the taurine on this one. Definitely would need to call. I see, you know, they have some of, not every concern that I would say for the Persian. I think there's a lot more concerns that could have been addressed for the Persian. They're not listing any minerals on any of the cat ones, so I don't know that it's much benefit to even go through them because we need to have that information for cats. So you'd have to call them and get that. So if you have interest in one of the breed-specific diets by Royal Canin for the cat, you guys are going to have to call and get, you got to have the minerals. It's just, you have to have it. So, super long video. If you made it to the end, leave me a emoji, leave me a thumbs up emoji so I know you made it to the end. I'm going to try to do timestamps if I can. I don't know if I have the time to sit down and do them all, but if anybody wants to do them and list them, I will be happy to post them in the description box. Otherwise, this was to help kind of get a feeling of what I would consider good marketing is. You know, this marketing is not poo-pooing anybody else. They are actually trying to do something better, but still staying within the optimal ranges. So they're getting creative, but they're getting creative with a good, firm foundation. And so that's what I think is important. Creativity is fine. We have to make sure those base bones are there. And so I feel like that has been achieved with some of these breed-specific lines, even though in general, a lot of it is marketing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you will check out my workbook. I hope that you will go to my website. Go to my website, check it out. I worked really hard on it for you guys. There's a lot of good tools there for you that I want you to have, and I want you to like and subscribe, and I want you to hang out with me again next time.